A number of people have commented, I noticed in the comment section on the channel, that adverts have appeared on this channel. It always feels like something of a rebuke when someone mentions them. I can assure you I have no control of them, and that I have never received a penny from an advert in my life. And I have no intention of it either. But I don't seem to be able to control the appearance of adverts on here. It's not my choice. It's YouTube is doing it, and I wasn't even aware of it until people mentioned it. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. If I find a way of removing them, you have my word, I will. But I can't. This next story, which is number 5 in the series, is about revenge, a little darker. Revenge, a very human emotion.
The Endless Knot. There was a chill in the evening. The street was wet and snuffling along in scarves and coats, and moss climbed the damp, relentless walls. It was early December, that drab period before Christmas comes, though the pubs were already rowdy, and occasional children had their noses pressed against suburban window panes. The lights would go up at the weekend. The mayor was to officiate at the ceremony. The Christmas tree already stood naked in the shivering square, awaiting its moment like an emperor, and shops were anticipating the season with their decorated windows, hopeful of early sales. Sales staff were wearing Father Christmas hats or fluffy reindeer antlers clamped to their heads. It had been like this all week. Each night, as Jennifer Beeson walked home from the office, she had viewed the preparations with an ambiguous feeling of thrilled, wistful anticipation for her childhood. And yet this evening as she walked home, something was different. Something had happened today. Jennifer had a tingling excitement held tightly within, something she must conceal from the world. It was a secret she could share with no one. She was feeling pleased with herself, too. A surge of triumph lit her way like a gloating private nativity. She felt she had good reason to be pleased with herself. Something she should have done long ago had now, quite irrevocably, been done. She had long thrilled herself, angry with private indignations and petulance to the point of exhausted satiation, with a dozen ways of doing this. And today she had done it. She had put strychnine in Marie Cox's cherry-flavoured water in the office. Marie would drink it tonight, and would be dead before Jennifer retraced these same footsteps back to her place of work in the morning. A place of work which would now have a vacancy. Marie deserved it. Oh God, how she deserved it. Marie, who treated her always with contempt, scarcely troubling to conceal it, who was forever recommending her choice of moisturizer, her health regime, her diet, her bottled water to others. They indulged her, the women in the office. "Oh, I must try some myself," Debs, the office manager, had gushed. Why did everyone defer to Marie? It was fear of her nasty wit. "It'll do wonders for your complexion. See how clear my skin is?" Marie had boasted, preeningly. "Yes, I wondered what your secret was," exclaimed Debs, ingratiating herself infuriatingly. Debs was her boss, for goodness sake. A mutual pretense was being indulged here. "I'll get you some of the water," promised Marie. The silly woman. As if Debs really wanted it. She was just pandering to her self-centered stupidity. Well, now Jennifer had put a stop to this. Marie wouldn't have to worry about her complexion ever again. The very thought of this, in its proximity still, made her smile. She was triumphant. She thought of all the wrongs the woman had done her, the meagre, senseless humiliations of her casual remarks, her exclusions from hushed conversations with the other women in the office, the turned backs in small huddles, that purposely excluded her, the slights and witticisms at her expense, which left an unfilled silence awaiting a riposte. Now that silence was filled with a riposte that would last forever. "Listen, I want to tell you what he said when he came up to me in the supermarket," said Marie. The other women gathered around, cradling their mugs in their hands. "Oh, the cheek of him," Deb said. "He really said that?" All these women who understood the liberties of men, but not Jennifer, whom no man ever looked at or attempted liberties with. Dumpy, frumpy Jennifer would not understand this story. She was excluded again. She took it quietly, went about her business, prim and resentful. "What did you do?" asked one. "I just stared at him." "Oh, I can just see you doing that too," said Debs. "You should have slapped his face," opined someone. "I would have." "I nearly died," said Marie, a thin-veiled conceit of delight grinning through. Well, thought Jennifer, sometimes wishes come true. She smiled at the recollection. She was Marie's fairy godmother. Her pumpkin awaited her. Jennifer walked on, brisk with purpose. The orange-flavoured sodium lights, dazzling lollipops licked the wet pavements, her breath pluming white vapours in the intense thrill of the dark. Shapes came and went like policemen. There was something sharp about Jennifer tonight. It was excitement. She recalled with the greatest pleasure how she had taken the bottle of strychnine. It had been in the garden shed for decades. Her father had kept it as a rat killer when she was young, and she had often thought of disposing of it after his death, but didn't. Perhaps some instinct had favoured it for some unforeseen event, as if it had awaited its purpose all these years for this day. She had taken the bottle in her handbag into work each day for 2 weeks now, awaiting her moment. Its mere presence in her bag fortified her, gave her a secret satisfaction when Marie insulted her with some act of casual neglect, or interrupted her, or just by the offence of her presence in the room. Clever, loud, and dominant. It had made her smile to know she had an antidote to all her affronts near at hand, one which would choke her to death in terrible spasms. Jennifer felt as though she had a loaded revolver in her bag, a fairy godmother's magic wand. That afternoon there had come the moment she awaited, had begun to doubt would ever come. But then, quite suddenly, and by the merest chance, the room was empty. Everyone had absented themselves for a variety of reasons at the same time, creating the perfect window of opportunity. "Now, do it!" cried the quick dancing furies urgently. It was here, the moment she had craved, and it took her breath away. She hesitated, was frozen by indecision, by the fear of being caught, the fear and hugeness of her enterprise. Would she dare? She knew she would hate herself if she dared not. It was a test of her mettle. Could she do it? She had girded herself. It was now or never. She sat at her desk in the empty room, uncertain. A quietness had fallen on the room like a spell. She felt alert, suddenly thrilled with danger. And then, in the suddenness of decision, she acted quickly. She slipped the bottle out of her bag and into the palm of her hand. It felt cold there, its aged yellow label curling brittle into her soft palm. She left her chair, moved swiftly over to Marie's bag in a single unified movement. Dumpy? Swift like a panther, she thought. She saw the cherry-flavoured water bottle, its red top visible, familiar, and with a quick glance round, for any trespasser upon the moment, an intruder who might suddenly appear from the end of the corridor, from an open door, and stop short, halting in their tracks abruptly, look up and meet Jennifer's fearful eyes, see the guilt therein, and with a puzzled, quizzical look say quietly, "What are you doing?" But there was no one furtive upon the scene but her, and she bent in swift rehearsed movement to the offending leather bag, fumbled the silly cherry water bottle with her trembling hands, and heard the hiss of the bottle as the cap released its energy instilled into it, pent upon this moment. She took a swig. Even this felt like egregious trespass. She appraised the level of the liquid in the bottle's neck, drank a little more, placed the bottle open on the table, and quickly retrieved, shook briefly, and uncorked the crusted bottle of strychnine and poured in its contents, topping up the lost water to the appropriate level. She assessed this quickly, holding it to the light, and satisfied, she recorked the strychnine and restored it to her pocket, rescrewed the red plastic top on the cherry water, and inverted the bottle twice to distribute its deadly potion. It looked oblivious to the potent misery of its concoction. She returned the bottle to Marie's bag like a wicked witch, and walked, her heart like a taut drum thumping the inside of her ribs, back to her looming desk. She slipped the bottle discreetly into her desk drawer. Here she sat, dry-mouthed, the papers on her desk swimming before her eyes, furious with delight and fear. Her eyes were gleaming with careful madness as she sat there, watching the others return in drips and drabs to their seats, the unsuspecting room repopulate. And she watched as Marie, loud with unknowing offence, returned to the room and sat, blind and discourteous, upon her silly seat. Jennifer had kept her head down, spoke less than usual even, for the rest of the afternoon, and then she left silently, the merest of goodbyes to obviate her exit, a slight smile of malice, of satisfaction upon her face. Jennifer walked swiftly along the familiar streets, gleaming with a secret knowledge. She reached her house and let herself in, the key to the door cold in her hand, in memory of strychnine. It was cold in the house too. The heating hadn't come on yet, and the dampness and coldness pervaded her kitchen like a mortuary. She stabbed at the central heating control and heard the boiler fire up like the sudden draught of a crematorium about its business. She fed her cat, Charlie, talked to him incessantly, now relieved of silence, told him of her day, wondered if she should tell him of her revenge, of the bottle of cherry-flavoured water, lethal with strychnine, which Marie would drink this evening, may have drunk already, and would die from its effects tonight. "I'll wait until you finish your dinner," she says, and laughs at this thoughtful courtesy. Charlie doesn't notice. He is intent upon the tuna meal, fastidious in his bowl, beside the cold water which momentarily distracts him as she places it to the side. "Oh, that's quite safe, Charlie. Don't worry about that," she reassures him smilingly. He knows her thoughts, of course, because they have such perfect symbiosis in all things. He knows all about Marie, too, because Jennifer has confided in him all the things in her days, her weeks, her tedious months, her life for the past 9 years of their acquaintance. And he has listened in reassuring silence to many tales of Marie. He knows the woman's meanness, the cleverness of her cruel remarks, the cuts delivered to his mistress, and has heard the many sharp replies Jennifer has thought up, l'esprit de l'escalier, far too late to serve her purpose. Jennifer considers what to make for her evening meal. She feels as if she deserves something celebratory tonight, but can't make up her mind what. Her decisiveness has been exhausted now. In the end, she settles for something quick and microwavable. She has been too long behind the times, dared to buy a microwave for the first time only weeks ago. They had one in the office, but she had never used it. Now she had secretly bought one for herself. She studies the reverse side of a box taken from the freezer top drawer. Pierce the lid in several places and then place in the microwave 750 watts for 3.5 minutes, or 3 minutes if it is 850 watts, she murmurs. That is vexing. She doesn't know whether it is 750 watts or 850 watts. Which is it? It may be 678.5 watts for all she knows. She looks on the microwave, but there is no indication of its wattage. She decides to look for the booklet it came with. She normally keeps such things in the fourth drawer down, directly beneath where the microwave sits. But how very annoying. It isn't there. Has she thrown it out? It seems doubtful. Jennifer throws nothing out. Perhaps it is a weakness. A search of other drawers does not reward her diligent inquiry. She feels a momentary frustration. It is a flaw in her plan. It annoys her, but she pulls herself together quickly. It will not spoil her mood. Nothing can do that today. She has felled her quick and cruel-witted opponent decisively. It is enough for one day. Even now, Marie may be lying in agony, wondering if it is something she has drunk or eaten. Oh, it just might be, Jennifer says out loud with a dark pleasure. Charlie looks up with a measure of disinterest. Having debated with herself and sought Charlie's advice in the matter, she decides not to split the difference between the two timings with an intermediate 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Today is not a day for half measures. She decides at last to put the microwave on for 3 minutes and 30 seconds. It may overcook it if the microwave is 850 watts, but at least it will be cooked. We don't want it to be cold in the middle. We might get food poisoning, she tells Charlie. He is attending to the remnants of his tuna dinner. Now that would be ironic, wouldn't it, Charlie? She chuckles. It is a rhetorical question, and Charlie treats it rhetorically. He never answers her back. 3 minutes 30 it is, then. Charlie looks up at her. You agree with me, don't you? Charlie's silence indicates no dissent. He has finished his dinner now, and laps the cool water from his clean bowl, and then insinuates his way between her ankles, pressing against her, his tail alert for company. A satisfied purr vibrates upon the air, but is extinguished by the sound of the microwave, turning the pierced plastic carton frozen on its pedestal as on a coroner's slab. As she waits, Jennifer picks up Charlie and cradles him in her arms, strokes his grateful head, flattening his soft ears back against his skull, hard-boned and sleek with affection. Jennifer pictures herself being told the news in the morning at the office. Marie is dead. And her astonishment. How? Why? What happened? Jennifer compresses her lips in grim satisfaction as she surveys in her mind the faces of those in the office gawping at this exciting development. It's not possible, says one. She looked so well yesterday, says another. She was only saying how she had managed to lose a few extra pounds of weight recently. Oh, yes, she did say that, thinks Jennifer, and added the barb at the end. Not like Jennifer, eh? She never changes. Maria had laughed. Well, she isn't laughing now, is she, Charlie? My guess is she'll get to lose those few extra pounds. Oh, how witty Jennifer is in the kitchen in Charlie's company. Perhaps this poisoning business brings out the best in her. She rehearses her conversations now in the kitchen as the microwave hums and the package rotates on its 3 minutes and 30 seconds predetermined course. The sympathy, the collection, the sorrowful, tearful funeral, the snivelling. Well, that would take some practice. Is snivelling required of loathsome colleagues, or reserved strictly for families, for loved ones, for friends, those worthy of moist appreciation, she wonders. No, of course not. Perhaps a little sniffle or two then, just to fit in with the others, to mask the fact that she is purring inside, but not loud enough for anyone to hear. She puts Charlie down to the cold kitchen tiles, and he looks up, green-eyed at her, stretches wide his mouth and stretches his back luxuriantly. It says on the box that the container should now be removed from the microwave, the lid removed and the contents stirred, before replacing it in the microwave for another 3 minutes, she informs Charlie, reading the instructions. Or 3 minutes 30 seconds if it is 750 watts. Here is a fresh dilemma. There is clearly the potential for doubling an error here if she opts for the longer time, but a distinct possibility that it will be undercooked if she goes for the lower time and it is only 750 watts. Here is the most difficult decision. If only she knew what the microwave was, 750 watts or 850 watts. Might it be 1000 watts? If so, the meal will be ruined. Cremated, in fact. Very well, split the difference. 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Suitable for an 800-watt microwave, which it presumably isn't. Well, it's a compromise. It feels like a small weakness, a chink in her resolve. Never mind. When the police come, of course, she will be aflutter with nerves. The detectives, grim-faced, will go into Deb's office, or even that of the big boss, Henry, in the room on the 4th floor. The others will all look at each other with a questioning awe. She alone will understand their purpose. Was it her imagination? Did the tall one cast her a quick glance, a piercing appraisal? The light of suspicion fleeting in his eyes? What could he know? And when Debs, her boss, calls her into the office, how her heart flutters, her legs feel weak, she is trembling, stumbling over her words. But she only wants to ask her who is on the rota for the week ahead. What a relief! Does it show her relief? It mustn't. Does Debs notice her sudden joy, her relief at the revelation of such a tedious request when she had expected much worse? And as she leaves the office, does Deb's gaze linger on her, and wonder become watchful of her when she mentions Marie's name, and her eyes brighten? And do the detectives exchange glances at that time, their eyes moving furtive, their heads quite still? Was she called to the office merely as a ruse, so they could observe her? Had she betrayed herself in some subtle way? What utter madness, Charlie! We have to stop all this, do you hear me? Dear me! Charlie watches her impassively, where he sits without the luxury of demurral or riposte, near the kitchen door. Now, what does it say here? Remove from the microwave and stir thoroughly once more. Then leave to stand for 1 minute. Now serve. No further difficulties. Good. It's all plain sailing from here. Shall we go in and sit by the fire, Charlie, and wait for the central heating to warm the house? Yes, of course you shall sit on my lap as soon as I have finished my meal. But as Jennifer ate her meal, other thoughts were with her. What was happening elsewhere in the city, in a suburb to the north, possibly only 3 miles away or less? By now someone was ill, terribly ill, dying, although she probably wouldn't know it yet. Perhaps she was by now in hospital, or an ambulance was running the traffic lights, siren blaring, cleaving the early evening traffic asunder to the unsuspecting pavements, lordly like Moses amongst the cars with a biblical import. Or else Marie was lying in the bathroom unattended, convulsive upon the floor. She wouldn't be dead yet. She might not even have drunk the water. Jennifer could even warn her, perhaps, change her fate. Jennifer had such power. Warn her about the cherry water? Really? About lacing it with strychnine and slipping it in her bag? I was going to kill you, but I've changed my mind, she could tell her. How absurd! It is too late for such consideration of her foe. There's nothing now can be done. Whether she has drunk it yet or not, she will die, even if she has not drawn the bottle from her bag, clasping it in her right hand, and with her left hand forefinger and cocked thumb, turned the cap anti-clockwise, and heard it hiss as carbon dioxide escapes like an evil genie. She deserves this. There are always consequences in life. It is like physics. It needed to happen. Anyway, she is probably dead already, and if she is not, then she soon will be. Her cruel tongue will be silenced, her lesson learned to an absolute degree of finality. The phone ringing interrupts her thoughts, makes Jennifer almost upset her half-finished meal. Oh, Lord! Her stomach is tight, loathing with apprehension. She picks up the phone with a trembling hand, an uncertain voice, muted, dull. Hello? It is someone who wishes to know if she has had her windows replaced recently. She tells him she has. It is a lie to dissuade. But he is used to such lies, detects them, is persistent by nature. He is probably a sex offender in his spare time, but that's just for practice. She suppresses his efforts by a curt denial and replaces the receiver, half expecting him to call again. Hovers by the phone in readiness and expectation with a smart reply to cut him dead. But the phone is silent. She is robbed of opportunity. She resumes her place on the sofa, a momentary feeling of mild disappointment. Oh, what a relief, Charlie. I nearly jumped out of my skin when the phone rang. The crisis is over, yet the sickness in her stomach survives the call. She puts aside the remains of her meal. She is not hungry any more. The night goes on. The sound of distant traffic declines, lulls to a quiet, filtered hum, sedates her mood to an expectant silence. Time passes. Uncertainty hangs in the air. There are always consequences. Yes, she will go to prison. And what will they say? The office gossip-mongers and after-the-fact know-it-alls. Who'd have thought she'd have done such a thing? I can't believe it. There was always something strange about Jennifer. She never liked Marie. Such things will be said by others, the wisdom of people after the fact. There was always something odd about her. I suspected her from the start. She lives alone with her cat, you know. Treats it like a human. I heard her mother died unexpectedly. Oh, I thought it was her aunt. It may be both. People are cruel. Only the dead can do no wrong. Marie was such a funny woman, they'll say. Do you remember that time? She raised £300 for charity in the half-marathon 3 years ago, you know. I won't forget the time she gave me. Even in death, Marie will triumph, and with such undeserved eulogies. There is nothing fair about life, only a blind, stupid kind of remote justice which cares nothing for people. Perhaps she should run. There is time. But where? And what of Charlie? She looks around for Charlie. He is no longer here. He has sloped from her lap and the room and gone to lie on the bed upstairs. Perhaps he wishes to dissociate himself from her, from a dreadful crime, something only a cat might sense after his 7th or 8th life. Has she had 7 cats? Perhaps she has. That is absurd. She could find an island off the coast of Scotland. They have thousands of islands there, and live there. People can't know them all. One of those contaminated ones which the government infected for some dubious purpose in the 1950s. No one would look for her there. She might be all right. Or she could travel abroad and change her name, make a fresh start. Or else she could hide in the attic for the rest of her life, stock up on food and water. Oh, she is tired of all this. The worry, the fear, the tedium of life. She girds herself to the unforgiving truth. Marie was a bad person, mean and cruel, truly awful. And now to all her other sins she adds another. She has ruined Jennifer's life. It has come to a stop with the horror that will be visited upon Jennifer, with the terrible thing she has driven her to. I, who have been nice and helpful to everyone all of my life, have been the butt of Marie's jokes, her digs and loud, brazen person, she thinks. She should die, and yet I am the one who will suffer for it. Regret, guilt, fear are miserable company. Why is it that the past can never be undone? Why is it so absolute, can never be revised or reconsidered? Why can we not change our minds and have another go at the same things or do things differently? Why can we not have 9 lives? The night was long for Jennifer and wakeful, her thoughts dark and pitying of herself and of others. But mainly she pitied herself. That is obvious. She knew her own sufferings better than she knew theirs, and they deserved them. She didn't. In the morning, Jennifer was shattered. Her dreams had worn her out, and waking nightmares even more so. So to her ablutions she addressed herself now with quiet resolve. The game is to be played, after all, however much we wish to revise the rules or the stakes. She dresses in subdued colours. It's a kind of pre-morning, with a furious determination, solemn in its undertaking to see the day through in spite of all. To the office she goes, by bus, and walks the long roads through the shadows of people who go, as fugitive they pass her by. She arrives at the office, fully rehearsed, word perfect to the part she will play. Her anticipation is a silent scream as she enters the room where she sits each day with everyone else. She does not look at Marie's empty desk. She will be late this morning. But for now, nothing is amiss. No one says anything. Nothing is known yet. She settles at her desk to routine inquiries and emails. There is nothing. Just a core of expectant silence amidst the morning chatter. A feeling something will happen. It is looming. A growing noise alerts her to the sound of voices in the corridor, coming from the canteen. They near. She can make out 1 or 2, but not the words. Just a murmur which becomes a certain tone. And then, impossibly, all too impossibly, she hears the voice behind. It is Marie, no less, saying casually, "Hi, Carol. Morning, Jennifer." And she passes by, still talking, cup in hand. She has come like a phantom from the canteen. Marie is not dead. Her family are not now at the hospital weeping as the doctor speaks in hushed tones to them. The detectives are not now on their way to the office. Nothing has happened. The relief she feels is as a strange reprieve upon the scaffold. She can breathe again. The hangman has been cheated, takes down his disappointed rope and folds it neatly in disgust, puts away his murderous toolkit. The governor sighs, the warders shrug. The world has been made new on the anvil of this moment. The office seems so normal. Life goes on. The girls talk of nothing in particular. The sound of printers and the tapping of computer keyboards, the occasional phone ringing, and the replies humming in the background. It is usual. Normality is restored, and how like a long, cool glass of water on a summer's day it seems. And then another phone rings. It has a certain tone of urgency about it. She hears it as it is answered. She looks out of the window at the buildings opposite. There is a monster rising visible in the window of her mind, a terrible spectre before her, though it is yet to be announced. Tilda answers the call. She puts down the phone. She is wide-eyed, her face white with shock. A ghost hovers in the room. Jennifer reads her as the room crowds upon her with a vicious purpose. There is fate gloating in its satisfaction here. She knows what Tilda will say. "It was the hospital," says Tilda in hushed tones. "Debs died early this morning." The day was surreal. The shock, the conventional words and expressions of sympathy, so trite. The arrangements, cards and collections, all the ceremony of death was set in motion. Jennifer watched it all as though it was a play. It had no sense of being real to her. Marie took charge of the office that morning, of course. She was enjoying every minute of it. Jennifer was sleepwalking. That Marie had given Debs her cherry-flavoured water, laced with strychnine, there could be no doubt. It was a horrible misfortune. Yet whatever guilt Jennifer felt, it was tempered by her dislike of the ingratiating Debs, and by the fact that Marie had, yet again, prospered at her expense. Then in the afternoon there was a kerfuffle. Detectives wished to speak to Marie. This caused a ripple of curiosity to run through the room. What was it about? No one knew. Jennifer was visited by a sudden, irresistible tingling, a thrill of excitement. The detectives were asking questions. Was Debs in the habit of drinking flavoured water? The detectives wished to know. Well, no, but Marie had given her a bottle the previous afternoon, they learned. Then later that afternoon, there came sensational news. Marie had been arrested for the murder of Debs. Jennifer was called in to see Henry on the 4th floor. A terrible business, he told her, shaking his head. Yes, she agreed. Well, we must carry on here in spite of all. We have lost, effectively, 2 members of staff. We need to continue to manage the workload without interruption, though. Life goes on. Yes, of course, said Jennifer. I would like you to take over Deb's role on an interim basis until we can find a replacement. Of course, it will put you in pole position when we make the permanent appointment, if you are doing the job temporarily. Yes, thank you. Jennifer considered the matter when she returned to her home that evening, in discussion with a purring Charlie. She had rid herself of Marie after all. Debs was something of an unintentional bonus, quite unforeseen. And here she was, manager of the office, too. Someone up there likes me, Charlie, she told him. The following morning she moved into Deb's office. She held a meeting of the office girls immediately, informing them of their duties and how she wanted to rearrange the office working patterns. Then she dismissed them with curt authority, satisfied. She would make some changes, a photo of Charlie on the wall perhaps, a watercolour her mother had painted of a pretty cottage, or the other one of a bowl of fruit. She needed to get rid of these Venetian blinds. Even when open, they restricted the light in the room. There was a knock on the door. A detective is here to see you, said Tilda. Oh, yes. Show him in. He entered and sat down. She recognized him from the previous day. Maria's been charged, he informed her. She's denying everything. Of course, said Jennifer. Her lawyers will be looking for opportunities others could have had to contaminate Debs's drink. Yes. Jennifer's eyes clouded over. She was thinking. It seemed to her the looming monster had returned, though she did not know why. We'll need to search the office so we can show no one else could possibly have done it, and we need to find the substance used, he said carefully. I see, said Jennifer. She was now thinking furiously. So we'd like all staff to vacate the room while we search their desks, he continued. When do you want to do this? Asked Jennifer after a pause. Right away. It won't take long. We'll begin with your room and be out of your way in a few moments. Jennifer's eyes strayed to her desk drawer for a brief moment, and then her gaze returned to the officer. Why had she left the bottle there? Was it a memento of her triumph? She had had ample opportunity of disposing of it. Suddenly it made no sense. "Can you give me a few minutes to have a quick meeting to inform staff?" she said quickly. "We need to do this now," he said firmly. "Very well. If you begin with those outside, I will finish up in here and get out of your way," she said. She was aware she sounded stilted, odd. There was a silence growing in the room, filling the space, gathering like 1,000 watching eyes. The detective held her gaze. There was a faint light of suspicion there, an alertness. Jennifer did not dare let hers drop, and yet her eyes were unnatural, unblinking, were stinging. It seemed endless. Then at last the silence was broken, like soft thunder, as the detective said, with quiet intuition, "We'll start here. It won't take long." Now there was a light shining malevolent in his eyes. Jennifer did not move, nor did he. Still their eyes were locked in painful comprehension. Then Jennifer relaxed, defeated. She sighed and dropped her gaze to the desk again. "No, it won't take long," she said. A pallid December light shone inadequately through the window. The Venetian blinds laid down a pattern across the room like a prison cell. Her eyes roamed to the grey buildings beyond. The faint hum of traffic sounded beyond the winter sky. It would be Christmas soon. "I wonder who will look after Charlie," she said.